Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the T.O.A Podcast. I am your host, Onvermel. Great here today with Eck, the Blacktron Maniac, pachydermed brother of Alberta, master of boats.
Yep, that sums me up pretty good.
I think I might have missed a couple things there, but, you get the basic gist,
Blacktron boats.
Both very integral part of your building. You've built boats. You've built Blacktron. You built Blacktron boats. You built boat Blacktron. And I would say that's
I really built boat Blacktron.
Yeah, that was like the space one. That was, I would say, the boat Blacktron.
But that was a spaceship that looked like a boat.
Which was boat Blacktron. And then that's a Blacktron boat.
That's a Blacktron Bionicle boat.
Oh, bionically say. Interesting. So even your greatest, I would say, themes have gone into Bionicle. I mean, okay, let's be honest. Let's get real before I can't keep this bit much longer. I don't know I was going to go with it. Obviously, yes. We build many different things, and sometimes they cross over. And definitely in later years, I would say...
the Blacktron Bionicles I built kind of indicates this, yes.
Definitely slowed down a lot. I mean, we both had a point where we were making system, space-themed based Bionicles.
It was the only thing that was cool and worth building.
It was like I was also building one at a time, It was a project over the course, I think, about a year from when I started to about when I finished, I think.
Something like that, yeah. Probably longer, possibly shorter.
And I would definitely say that was like one of those first times building Bionicle that was like, I felt like there was very specific inspiration going into it rather than just inspiration that wasn't, I would say, Bionicle. Because generally when I built like any older Bionicle stuff, the inspiration was other Bionicle sets. You build a T.O.A, what's your inspiration? Other T.O.A. You build the Dark Hunter, what's your inspiration? The Dark Hunters, you didn't have outside influence. And I would say that was like kind of the first... Now, don't get me wrong, it didn't affect the build of the mocs too much back then, I would say. They were mostly, just kind of stuff in the color of the space things. They weren't like... I mean, the Mtron one, which the whole gimmick is magnets, I didn't really dive into the magnet aspect of it.
No.
Not that it would have been kind of
just
difficult.
Building a Bionicle in Mtron colors.
And that was about it. Classic Space was kind of the same. Although, in certain cases, I think...
Insectoid.
True. I did make it more of it was a bug. A parrot bug, because it was a parrot to the pirate, Blacktron. So it had to be a parrot, but because it was insectoid, I figured it may as well be a bug. Because of parts. But in later years, I would say, especially more recently, just kind of looking at our creations, there's been a lot more outside influence or inspiration. I mean, currently right now, you're in the project of building another Bionicle boat.
Kind of two, actually. It's like I have an idea to build a hull this way, but I have an idea to build a hull this way. One is much cheaper, because I don't have to buy stuff as much, because I just kind of use what parts I have. The other one will look better.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, partially, these aren't just boats made out of Bionicle, but the boats made of Bionicle for Bionicle. From the Bionicle, for the Bionicle. Same as from the boys, for the boys, General Pitbull, that one's for you.
My first Bionicle boat was built for kind of a construction figure, Jack Sparrow. That's kind of...
That was cool.
He's not a Bionicle, though.
No, it was a Bionicle build, but he wasn't a Bionicle,
The next one was the Blacktron Bionicle boat.
Which, I mean...
It's exactly what it says, but it's not for Bionicle.
It's for Blacktron. It just happens to be made out of Bionicle parts.
And it's also a boat.
Exactly. But,
this next boat, yes, it's a full-sized Bionicle boat.
And I would say this one has a little bit more, at least the newest one you were showing me, has a bit more inspiration where you're actually going to be drawing from for the design and such.
Yes, I thought, my first was to build, I want to build a Bionicle boat for Bionicles. And then I'm like, I kind of want to do... The hull's not necessarily going to look at, what's a good inspiration to build a boat? How about just look at the Lego boats?
There are many of them.
I want to build a Black Seas Barracuda in Bionicle. I'm going to need a lot more brown Balrog bodies.
I'm very curious to see how that's going to turn out.
Me too.
Now, obviously, I would say it's a very straightforward and obvious sort of inspiration because it's going to look like the Black Seas. You'll look at it and go, oh, okay,
It's a giant Bionicle Black Seas Barracuda.
And I would say for the most part with my Bionicle builds, I don't usually have direct inspiration usually. I mean, one character of mine, Callan Borg. So there's one Bionicle YouTuber, Callan, LOF.
Perhaps you've heard of him.
If you watch Bionicle YouTubers, you pretty much know of Callan.
If you know of this channel, you know of that channel.
I would hope so. And essentially, I built a character way back when who wasn't anything like Callan, but he was like dark red, silver, and had a Ruru, and was kind of cybernetically Borg-like. And we jokingly just called him Callan Borg, because at that point we recently discovered Callan. He was on the mine, you know. This guy had the same shape of mask. It was the loosest connection ever. But over the years, I decided to actually hone in on that concept. So I basically tried to recreate one of his self-mocs, but like then change the one side so it's like cybernetic on one side and then his self-mock on the other side. So it really is properly the Callan Borg concept. I mean, I did take a couple creative liberties just for parts I didn't have and just to make it more cohesive for how I designed it. But again, it was like the only time I would say I looked at someone else's mock and had to try to recreate them, because that's something I personally don't do. I might get inspired by someone else's mock.
A lot of people.
I might get inspired by design.
A lot of people like to, sell their instructions online of their mocks, and there's another group of people who like to buy these instructions and build that. We are not those people. Either one. We don't sell instructions. We don't buy instructions.
Sometimes I feel cheap when I just take a building technique that I've seen and go, I was like, I'm using this. I didn't come up with this, but I mean
works like, for what I did, but it wasn't mine.
It's like, at what point do you take enough techniques that you have to credit like another builder for, like online?
There's plagiarism, and then there's research.
I mean, if you're just building a mock and showing it to people and going, hey, I built this, people will be like, all right, cool. Now, if people are saying it's like, oh, that's a cool technique, and it wasn't your technique, then that's where it comes in.
Then you have to be like, yeah, I borrowed this from someone else. But let's be fair, most Lego builders are fine if other people use their stuff.
Actually, in bringing back to Callan, the standard Lego hand I used on my mocks, where it's a Technic brick with a ladder holder with fingers.
Yeah.
That is Callan's, at least I saw it on Callan's mock with his self-mock. That is where I got that design from. And I've been using it since pretty much for most of my stuff. But it was originally from him that I saw, and I don't know if he came up with that specific design. And I have changed it a little bit by having a double axle with a black on the pin, so you can actually hold stuff.
Yes, that piece was so nice.
That piece was amazing. It was great.
And it comes in black. The best part about it.
But that's just taking a couple design cues. But as I was saying, in later years, the idea of inspiration. Usually, there's not very many times I would say I build a mock that's like, okay, I want to do this, but it's going to be like this, and I want it to look like this. I mean, I guess you could say with my Blacktron 2 mock, Pango, I really wanted to make him look like a Blacktron 2 color scheme that was a pirate, but specifically to have a jacket, hook, tricorn,
open vest,
no shirt, which I think I captured really well.
Yeah,
I really should show some pictures in this podcast with a little more effort, just so I can get at least a sense for some of this. I won't be putting pictures for everything we talk about, but maybe for some stuff.
Pango here, he's Blacktron, worth showing,
Yes, exactly. But also a lot of stuff he doesn't actually. You don't need to know what I'm talking about. Just that. But I had a very specific identity I wanted to make him look like, and I had a little bit more inspiration because the main reason why I was going Blacktron Pirate was he was homaging you essentially, because I was going to make a Blacktron 2 that's your theme. So let's make him a pirate to
also kind of my theme.
Quite pun intended, but a tip of the hat to you for that.
Yes.
And that kind of idea for inspiration there was it's nice, and it's definitely reaching out of the typical bubble. Another thing that I had that was inspired by something very specific that I had a look that I needed to pin down was when I made my T.O.A Variki. Because I had gone a Shapeways mask of an earlier design of a Liwa Nuva Fantoka mask that the community has nicknamed the Master Chief variant because it was very much inspired by that. And I looked at that and was like, I want to build a Bionicle using that looks like a Spartan or Master Chief, or at least exudes that feeling of one, because I'll be honest, he doesn't technically look exactly like one. He's got bigger shoulders.
Other than the mask.
He's got the physique and he's got the build of a Spartan. That's the thing. He's got the build of a Spartan. I did give him the gold visor, but as I was building him, I decided that it's going to be my Variki. He's my Fantoka Variki, so I added some other stuff to him, so he's kind of got Fantoka add-ons to him, as if he's got an adaptive armor version of Variki. So, getting inspiration by, the Master Chief and the Fantoka with the mask, kind of wanted to do that. So I gave him a Matoran to hop on his back like the Fantoka, And because this is Master Chief wannabe, I call him a Torn Cortana.
There was no other option.
There was no other option, and I definitely really enjoyed that combination of characters. And again, that was like one of those times where I had a very specific style and look I wanted the build to have, and I think I nailed it. He's not as particularly posable as some mocs could be, but he's fine. He's good. He's really cool, and also just making the energy sword just out of the couple parts is like, it's stupidly simple, but it gets the feeling and look down perfectly, especially because he's a 12 energy, so I mean energy sword.
It's just meant to be.
There's just so many options. So because he was a Pantoka, I decided to give him Mimic Sky Blaster, and add a little bit of stuff so it feels more like a a Halo gun maybe, at least compared to regular Bonkel launchers and such.
Mm-hmm.
Not crazily, but just enough to add a little something into it. But yeah, no, it's, and even just playing Minecraft lately, recently finally discovering the Deep Dark the first time and coming across a warden, dying horrifically twice, having everything despawn 3 blocks or 5 blocks away from my vision, right in front of me. I was just trying to get it back. If you guys don't want to hear that story, maybe I'll tell it. I don't know. I play Minecraft. You guys ever want to see me play Minecraft, mention it, but I'm probably not going to show you that. But I was thinking, I kind of want to build a Bonkel that's kind of inspired by that character. And for me, that'd be kind of cool, because building a Bonkel that'd be like dark blue, black, and tan as kind of like the main colors. I think it'd be pretty cool. And I was thinking, well, if I want to make it bigger and more, somewhat lower myself, I was like, I can make it like a mutated T.O.A Keta, so it's like a T.O.A stone, earth, and water mixed together to make it really feel unnatural. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Minecraft may not have necessarily lore to it, but there is a lot of theories and such, and there is lore. The developers just aren't going to tell you it.
Of course not.
And so the Warden, to me, always just kind of felt like an unnatural amalgamation of stuff, or it feels unnatural. And so because of my own stories with having a prison island, which everyone who there works there has dark blue, and I was thinking that island already has experiments working on T.O.A Keta, and I was thinking of the concept of T.O.A Keta with this. I'm like, I was getting inspiration from my own lore, from Minecraft, and it's kind of wanted to put them together. I don't know exactly how I'm going to build it yet, but I was getting this major inspiration to have this very much thing. But the problem with me is, if I'm building something, I want specifically to have it fit in my greater world.
Yeah, I can't just build something. I have to build something to fit in my own established universe.
Like, I can occasionally just build something out of randomness, but eventually it'll find its way into...
Yeah, like my Roman ship over there. That really doesn't fit into my established LEGO lore.
Yeah, Romans don't really exist in your LEGO lore.
And yet, there it is. But that's like...
an exception.
The exception.
And let's be honest, that was more of a prompt for me to get you to make it, I think, more than anything.
Well, I wanted to use the Viking hulls for something. I didn't need to build a Viking boat.
But I think I was prodding you a little bit to make a Roman boat.
It definitely was your...
Well, let's be honest. I was prompting you to do something you kind of were probably already going to think about.
I'm pretty sure you just straight up said build a Roman boat. And I'm like,
well, first you think. Well, first you were saying that the design of the hull was wrong, but then you also worked around it, which is.
Well, I think you mentioned it. Then I looked into it, said it was wrong, and then I did it anyways.
Ah, yes, proving yourself wrong. Well done, vindicating myself. Yeah. But no, definitely I would notice that with the idea of basically just getting inspired, and I think when people talk about creative works, the term uninspired as kind of like not necessarily a jab, but just a way when you notice something that seems uninspired. And I would say I've finally gone to the point now where if I build a mock or I've seen a mock and I look at it and go, the word, I don't know how to describe it, where it's like, maybe it's a good mock, it's not bad, but there's something lacking. And I think the word that I can finally say I can pinpoint now is uninspired.
Yes.
And because I have one, I built mocks that don't last very long, and they're fine mocks. They're built, not differently. They're maybe clean and such, but
they are
uninspired. And so it's there's not a whole lot of. I would say when I don't have an uninspired mock, I don't put those extra details in, because my typical way of building mock is I build it, and then I spend the next 2 weeks tinkering with it. A week to 2 weeks basically changing up the limb here, adding this detail here, filling in those gaps there, maybe I need his arms to be a little bit shorter, just really just fine-tuning it. And I think that desire to fine-tune comes with having inspiration that I specifically want to meet of my own accord. But when I don't have inspiration, a mock is done, and it's like, well,
I guess
done.
it's done.
Put that to the side, move on. So, not also there's always going to be exceptions to it, but that really thought, words, speak, word, English, talk, mouth open, word, noise come out, conversation.
I think you lost your train of thought.
My train of thought, it was supposed to hit the station, it took a wrong turn, and it's somewhere by Albuquerque now. Albuquerque.
It took a wrong turn at Albuquerque.
But I would definitely, and even, I would say sometimes, I have had unintentional inspiration, like subconscious. Yes. One specifically, the most recent one, Dentar, which, if this video is going to be out, you'll see some of the work in progress in my shorts. His completed model video should be coming out, I think, about a week after, on Halloween.
Shortly.
I think Halloween actually is when I have a few progress videos. But if you look at my shorts, you can see one of Dentar. And a lot of people were pointing out that he looked like a Jaeger from Pacific Rim. And this is the thing is, I only watched Pacific Rim the first time, only maybe a month before I'd started him. And looking at him going, I mean, he's also giant huge, so maybe it's just inevitable. But
yeah, that's.
But I'm like, is there a bit of a Jaeger inspiration? Maybe when I was doing the chest, because normally when I was going to do chest, I wanted to do more of a Tridax pod. But I decided to do something different. I was like, oh, this is liking it. And maybe my brain was just thinking of a Jaeger and going, Gypsy Danger. This is how we're doing it, and I'm okay with it. I love people pointing out that it's like a Jaeger. I think that's amazing. That's like one of the best compliments I've gotten from it. And honestly, you put a minifig next to his head, yeah, it's a little bit of a small Jaeger for a minifig scale, but you put a microfig, and you pretty much at that point start getting to almost an accurate microfig Jaeger. Like, it's big. He's 3.5. Well, he's 3.5, 42 inches tall, and the minifig is like what?
An inch.
Just under an inch, I think.
A little over an inch.
Around an inch, so that's a pretty big difference. And you just think about older creations that have unintentional inspiration.
XB. The B on the Ek.
Oh, yeah. That was not as much intent. That was more like a happy accident where we made the Bionicle letter for B on the chest of Ek, and Blacktron are supposed to have B's on the chest. If you want a better example, we're talking about the Mox of the Cave video number 2, where we were showing off Ek and Purple Wolf, our old self Mox. Has much better
goes in depth
about it. But I was thinking more about Urappen. So when I think of Urappen, the build is a unique build, but you add armor to the shoulders and the lower legs specifically. You're not making a humanoid body where the thighs are thicker than the lower legs or anything like that. You give them lanky arms, big lower legs, and big shoulders. When I think of that, one thing comes to mind: Transformer toys. Typically, Transformer toys have pretty big lower legs, thinner kind of upper legs, big honking shoulders.
And now that you pointed it out, it makes so much sense.
And this thing is, I built the first Urappen roughly when Transformers was biggest in my time of me being interested in them. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, as a kid, also just slapping parts wherever to make things bigger was whatever. But I think even the characters of those ones, of my early ones, were all very much inspired.
Defron is Starscream.
Defron Starscream. Zakrak was Megatron. Zerut was Shockwave. There were some very distinctive parallels. And honestly, Onvermel, my self-mock, before he was my self-mock, the way I would describe him as a character, how I wanted to portray him, was you put Total Econ, mix with Qui-Gon Jinn, mix with Optimus Prime as the type of leader I wanted him to be. He's not as much that character anymore, especially because he's become a little bit more polished in certain aspects. He's not a self-mock, he's more of the mascot, I guess would be a better way to describe him. But again, that was more purposeful story-wise of trying to put him, but the Urappen were very much unintentionally ended up being these Decepticon allegories. And even just the way I build them, the way that their bodies are kind of shaped, they're very much transformery in that kind of kibbly, busy, bulkiness. And I'm okay with that. It doesn't really bother me, especially because nowadays when I build stuff, I generally go for more human physique, and I kind of miss the days of just being able to build a Bionicle, the lanky armed. I think the last time I really built something that was lanky armed that wasn't like a Urapin was actually a Glatorian. But that's because when I build a Glatorian, I can kind of wrap my head around that, okay, they're not T.O.A, so they're supposed to look a little bit different, even though they're probably supposed to look more humanish, but I don't care. I'll build a Glatorian how I want to build a Glatorian, which also, Glatorians. If you want to talk about inspiration, I built a female Skrull that was white and black because the one Skrull piece that I used in the shoulder came in red, lime, and glow in the dark, or looks pretty much like white. But Skrull always in the canon were black and red, black and lime, and there were like female Skrull that were mentioned, but they were never really properly described. I think they technically were by Greg at one point, but that was so late in the game that no one knows about it, and it's very vague and you don't have to listen to it. So I was like, I kind of wanted to build a female Skrull for the fun of it, and I was like, well, why not make it white and black for the fun of it?
Because it got the nice weapon.
It took a couple tries for me to sit down and actually feel like I got in the mood to the inspiration of how to build it, like and how to actually make the body look. Because how much do you actually want to...
Sometimes you have an idea, but not inspiration.
And that one I would say I had an idea first, but the second or third go around I finally got inspiration. And that was after I'd built a green Glatorian. Because before I had that, I had the inspiration to make a Glatorian who looked like he had patches of armor from a bunch of different villages. Like, he very much looked like he had a mismatch of armor. So I basically built a green figure and then gave him like red shoulder armor here, a Zesk skull here, 2 different kind of leg armor. He's got a cloth, he's got pouches, he's got a Roxy staff because in my mind, after the formation of Sir Magna and the battle with the stuff, he picked up a Roxy staff because he defeated one. And for him, as a Glatorian, it's like, I defeated this foe, I will take his weapon because this foe was scary and nasty.
I nearly died twice.
Just don't tell him that other people probably defeated a bunch of Roxy because he thinks defeating one Roxy was...
Well, for him, it was tough and challenging.
And so basically going that into his character, and so I had his one weapon on his left hand, it's like a claw, and I like to think that originally when he was a Glatorian, he had 2 big gauntlets that he fought with, but he only kept one because he's got the Roxy staff. And the nice thing about the gauntlet is it uses the dark green protect foot as like the base of the gauntlet, but we had a really beat up one at the tip of it, so it does look like this thing's been used compared to like his Roxy staff, which looks a lot more new. And this is where a nice thing about using beat up parts sometimes can come very handy. The only other person I've used beat up parts specifically is you would come across a dark red Tometry leg that was like warped and bent and kind of chewed looking in one of your stuff. And I so happened to have a Toe of Fire who had those as lower arms, but he had a gun as his hand, so he didn't have like a proper hand. It looked like his gun was added on. So I get this busted piece and basically say, well, his hand got crippled and broken, and he added a gun on, so he's got this like beat up, crippled arm underneath this prosthetic.
This is kind of like using yellow to white pieces to make a spaceship or something, or a castle look way more weathered.
What I really want to do is like build an identical mock, one using like perfectly pristine white parts, and then using one specifically using yellow parts.
I've kind of had this idea for a certain spaceship I have. I have intentionally let that thing collect dust for years. Never dusted it.
And have you also been swapping out like a bunch of parts so we would beat up one, scratch glass panes, yellowed parts you put on it?
Like, it's got my most beat up transneon green pieces. It's got some bent antennas. It's a Blacktron ship I'm talking about.
You did have 2 of these originally too.
I originally, built 2. Identical good ones.
He broke one.
And then I took one apart, kept one, and just sort of rusted it up and dustied it up. And, like, I changed a lot of things to make it look as if it was missing panels. And as I mentioned, I haven't dusted this thing in ever. That
reminds me, I do have one other option of a beat-up piece on mock. I built, and this was another inspiration one, I built a Bayrag. A third one that was supposed to look like old, decrepit. This thing looks like it really has not been like paired up in a long time, and so I made it out of a lot of like old dark gray with like hints of green in it. Zadak, and I actually really love the mock. I'll probably show pictures of that one too.
I feel like there was something.
But specifically, I had a Throwbot hand or a Poatu hand that didn't have good clutch, so she's got just like this gimpy hand that just like that hangs there. And because of how she's basically like a really weathered, old, decrepit Bayrag, I love that just this hand just hangs there as if it's like you broke the wrist and no one's been around to fix it.
I feel like there was another mock where I intentionally used beat up pieces, but I can't put my finger on what it was.
I don't know. I'll say this though, using old pieces on like for me making a white castle, using all these like yellowed castle stuff, very nice. Very nice.
It's like the only time where yellowed white pieces work
is a castle.
You're building an old castle.
Basically, if you're building a build, I mean, you could build spaceships with yellow and be like, oh, it's an old ship.
Well, my rusty ship.
Yeah, exactly.
I've tried, like, I've swapped out a lot of the white parts for the most yellow ones I could find.
This is why I like putting lore to my mocs. Because it just, even if it's something that's not intentional, like if something ends up being like I have to use a piece for a reason, and then go, well, you know what? I'm going to find a reason for this to be here. And, maybe it'll prompt me writing a story. Like, I had built Karipe, a toe of gravity, and I wanted to use my chrome How on a mock. And so I built a toe of gravity with a shiny chrome How.
Alright, gotta get some
And
lore.
so I was writing a story about him, so I decided that, there was lore behind this mask, which was connected to a conversation that we all had about dipping, protodermis on masks to protect your mind and stuff.
So essentially he's got a tinfoil hat.
On the channel, there's a video of us having a Skype call that I recorded us talking about this conversation. I think it's just like 4 Bongle buddies chatting or something. Maybe I'll maybe try linking in the description if I remember. No promises. And not that many videos. I'm sure you can find it. And we were talking about joking in the fact that all the silver on Matoran says it started as one guy doing it as a tinfoil hat, but became popular in fashion, so then every Matoran started doing it. And I like to think that was, and so, like, at least when I was writing the story, I was doing it a little less jokingly, but it came from Nechanui, where, Kapura, as a mask maker, was the one who, did it for Karipe. I think in my story, it basically protects his mind from being, probed and such. Like, it's a defense mechanism by the coding. But, I added that mask idea, and then I was like, okay, well, he's got a Cordic Blaster, but it's a wrist-mounted one, so, I made sure he had extra bullets around him. I was going crazy into basically lore with him. I was having really fun with that, but I had a Chrome How. I didn't need to give it a reason.
But you did.
But I did, and it's fun, and it's cool,
It's Chrome, it deserves a reason.
Exactly. Chrome always deserves a reason, and for me, finding reasons for stuff, like, I know Zactaz in here, and he might be listening to this, and he might disagree with this, but I'm pretty sure I've had conversations with him where he's like, why do you need an explanation for this? And I just go, I don't know, it's just fun. I like reasoning things out. I like having a purpose for this or that. I do have just a hard time for having stuff being there for a reason, which maybe that's just my more adult brain. I need to rationalize stuff.
Well, Zactaz just better at creating stuff without needing a reason.
But at the same time, he's also better at only buying stuff he has a use in a comic. I have a little less of if it's a part of if I just say it's for a collection, it's an excuse, even if it's like the most loose way of like a collection. But again, that's just how my brain works with building mocks. Is like I kind of need reason, purpose, story, and if not, I'm going to give it reason, purpose, and story. So, like I said, with building, and I've had it before where. I think people often ask like Lego builders, who's like, where do you start? Where do you get inspiration with building? And honestly,
sometimes it just comes out of nowhere.
Well, some creations, you get the idea of what you want to do, right? You don't know how to do it, so you just start putting pieces together. You find a piece that may you're like, this looks great here. Now, how do I attach it? And you try 10 different ways to attach one piece.
Well, a lot of people don't understand is to build great Lego creations, you need years of practice.
It's also, I would say, something that's 100% a work in progress. It's like a trial and error base.
Oh yes, exactly.
It's like, yeah, you could build a car the same way that everyone else does, but even then, you look at how anybody builds stuff. Everyone builds stuff differently. So for people who aren't really getting into Lego, they always ask us how do you build like this? And it's just I don't know. I just put pieces together. I try different things out and I figure out what works. There's no you can watch tutorial videos of how to do different techniques or build this, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of
you need to build.
Yeah, you just
get a pile of pieces
and something as simple as just being inspired by one thing and having that image in your head and just not stopping until you have that in your hand.
Exactly.
But I think that's all the time we have for tonight. I think that's a really nice note to end on. That was like the most ending note. But, thank you all for watching, and hope you guys all have yourselves a good night. I have been your host, Onvermel. This has been the T.O.A Podcast, and we are retiring from the night.